Since its inception, the Mossad has lived up to the directive Israel's first Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion gave it. For our state, which since its creation has been under siege by its enemies, intelligence constitutes the first line of defense. We must learn well how to recognize what is going on around us. Operation Damocles began after Egypt's covert attempts to develop conventional weapons capable of striking targets deep into Israel were discovered. The Israeli intelligence apparatus was shocked when Egypt successfully test-fired a rocket in July 1962 and paraded 2 new types of long-range conventional rockets around Cairo. Even more unnerving to Israel's leaders were reports from a disaffected Austrian scientist who approached the Mossad with claims that Egypt was attempting to equip the missiles with radioactive waste, as well as obtaining nuclear warheads. Egypt's long-range missile program began under President Nasser, who sought conventional capabilities of striking deep into Israel, without the help of the Soviet Union. Egyptian General Mahmoud Khalil, former Air Force intelligence officer, and head of the Bureau for Special Military Programs, was appointed to form a group that would develop these weapons for Egypt. Khalil knew just where to look. Amongst former Nazi scientists, Egyptian agents began recruiting hundreds of experts who had been employed in rocket and aviation institutes for Nazi Germany. Tempted by high salaries, bonuses and privileges, hundreds of former Nazis began entering Egypt to help Nasser build secret weapons. Front companies were established to mask the real development going on in the factories and allow Egypt to acquire materials necessary for the project. Several factories were built, including Factory 36, which developed jets, and Factory 135, that built jet engines. But the most secret was Factory 333, hidden deep in a remote area of the desert. There, ex-Nazis were working on Nasser's intermediate-range missiles. After an American reconnaissance aircraft photographed Israel's nuclear reactor site in Dimona, the Arab world was furious, and Nasser was determined to neutralize Israel's nuclear project. Nasser ordered Factory 333 to speed up development. The Mossad obtained a document about Factory 333, written by German scientist Wolfgang Pils, detailing the number of weapons being developed, and weak evidence of plans to develop chemical, biological, and gas-filled warheads for these rockets. A few months later, the Mossad started Operation Damocles, which included assassinations of the German scientists working at Factory 333, through letter bombs and abductions. Lacking its own operational division at the time, the Mossad mainly used the Shin Bet to carry out the attacks. However, the Mossad provided its own small operational unit, headed by future Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir. Some known attacks carried out through Operation Damocles include an explosive package sent to Wolfgang Pitz, which detonated in his office, injuring his secretary. An explosive package sent to the Heliopolis rocket factory, which detonated and killed 5 Egyptian workers. In Lorach, Germany, an Israeli operative fired a shot at a professor assisting Egypt with electronics research. The bullet missed and the gunman escaped. The Damocles operation gained public exposure when Heidi Goerke was threatened by Mossad operatives, threatening her safety if she did not convince her father, an electronic guidance expert working at Factory 333, to return to Germany. The operatives were arrested by Swiss authorities, who discovered that they were also involved in additional abduction attempts of German scientists. The public exposure was a huge embarrassment to Israel. At the time, Israel was trying to build solid relations with West Germany, and had already begun receiving war reparations and weapons. Operation Damocles was a diplomatic scandal. Head of Mossad, Isser Harel, was forced to resign. In protest of Harel's treatment, Yitzhak Shamir, and others involved in the operation, resigned. Under threats and diplomatic pressure, the German scientists eventually left Egypt. The rocket program and Factory 333 ceased to exist. But Nasser turned to the Soviet Union, who agreed to provide Egypt with long-range Scud rockets. Egypt's long-range rocket capabilities were greatly feared during the Yom Kippur War. Although operated by Soviet crews, towards the end of the war, 2 Scud rockets were launched at IDF troop concentrations, and an area receiving supplies from the USA. Israel was relieved to hear from its intelligence asset in Egypt, that Egypt did not intend to escalate the conflict. In Sagger, you can test alternative historic options, such as in-depth airstrikes, on Egyptian economic targets. That may lead to the launch of deadly Scud missiles, on Israeli cities. Discover what the USA has to say about your actions, and where the consequences of all-out war can lead.
Commander, I have a report for you, and also a suggestion. So without further ado, we should order IAF patrols over the Mediterranean coastal areas to prevent potential attacks by enemy aircraft. Good call. We're on it, Commander. I'm glad that we ordered the IAF patrol off our coast, Commander. But then, we wouldn't have been able to stop the Kelv missiles that the Egyptians fired at central Israel. We would have endangered our citizens. One missile fell into the sea, and the other was down by our patrol. You can read more about it in the report.
Commander, I suggest we consider in-depth bombings of Egypt.
Or they'll use Celts instead of Scuds. I wouldn't recommend an attack of this sort. It could escalate the conflict to dangerous levels.
I think that if there's the slightest possibility that the Soviets will launch Scuds at us in retaliation, then it's not worth the risk.
Our deep penetration air raids during the War of Attrition were very effective. I'm simply saying that this is an option that's worked for us in the past. Let's reevaluate the possibility in the near future.
I have an intelligence report on Egyptian missiles and mutual deterrence, Commander. It's very relevant to this conversation.
Commander. Commander.
The source has uncovered some important and concerning information. Soviet teams conducted reconnaissance in the areas around Port Said, Ismailia, and Damietta, searching for launch sites for Scud missiles. I suggest you read the report carefully. This significantly shifts the balance of power with regards to Israel and Egypt.
Commander, we conducted air sorties in response to the intelligence you uncovered regarding the Scuds. These Scud missiles worry me, Commander. Perhaps Kissinger can speak with his Soviet counterparts and tell these goons not to make any moves with such dangerous weapons. You should call Simcha and have him talk to Kissinger.
Hello, Commander. Yes, it's very concerning. These weapons affect the price we'll pay for a war with Egypt. Also, remember that our chances of getting an advance intelligence warning of a sudden missile attack are slim. Are the Soviets in complete control of the Scuds, or are they in Egyptian hands? Let me guess. You want me to talk to Kissinger about this? I'll do that right away, Commander.
Commander, I want to discourage you from ordering any in-depth bombings of strategic targets in Egypt. I was, until Soviet teams launching Scuds became a possibility. We certainly don't want to escalate the conflict to the point that Soviet crews fire Scuds into Israel.
Commander.
Like I told you, if we launch an attack on strategic targets in the heart of Egypt, Sadat will retaliate with Scuds. I believe we can deter Egypt from continuing to attack us. That could be arranged, but we need to stop these in-depth bombings immediately. These bombings are escalating the conflict to new heights. The USA won't be happy, and they won't resupply us if we continue.
I'm calling about the recent Scud missile attack on your cities. Yes, but first, you need to stop bombing Egypt. I'll let my Soviet counterpart know that Israel will stop its in-depth bombings on the condition that no Scuds are launched.
I'm relieved that you decided to stop the in-depth bombings of Egypt. Yes, Kissinger is glad you kept your promise. He promises to continue supporting Israel in return. My hope is that the USA will start a resupply operation soon.
Have you checked the Scud positions recently? I'm worried about potential Scud missile attacks from Port Said. I suggest launching some sorties in the area. We just attacked Port Said with the IAF. It's hard to say. We hit several missile launch sites, but hits on Scud sites haven't been confirmed.
Commander, take a closer look at current Scud positions. A Soviet Scud battery, which was previously deployed in the eastern Nile Delta, has moved to an eastern position a short distance from the canal. We should monitor it for now and see if more batteries are being moved.
Raviv, we've been hit!
What's going on over there? I heard a huge explosion.
Something big. This wasn't regular artillery fire.
Those bastards must have launched a Scud or some other large missile at us.
Bad news, Commander. The Egyptians have fired 2 Scud missiles at IDF troop concentrations. 2 of the missiles were fired into the eastern area of the yard, killing 7 soldiers from the 600th Brigade's maintenance unit.
The Egyptians could be trying to shock us and fire the last shot just before the ceasefire.
Commander.
The source has uncovered some information regarding Scud missiles. Scuds were deliberately fired at Israeli troop concentrations. But Egypt has no interest in escalating the conflict at this time, and will not be. The source says there's evidence that they were fired by the Soviets without Egypt's approval. The Soviets were disappointed that the war was coming to an end, without them using the most sophisticated weapon they had supplied to Egypt. Check out everything in the report.